Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to World Poetry Day, Jamaica. What a fantastic celebration organized by the National Library of Jamaica. Poetry is such a critical part of who we are as Jamaican people in all of its forms, through our music, our literature. We have used poetry for many years to express ourselves and to share our stories, and so it's important for us to gather today and to recognize that. Before we get into the program, though, I'm going to invite everyone to stand for the national anthem, the words of which express such a powerful prayer and such amazing lyrics on World Poetry Day. So please stand. Seated. I also want to welcome those who are joining us live via stream on the National Library of Jamaica's YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And so I want to acknowledge some of the very important people who are with me in the room. The Honorable Alando Terrelonge, Member of Parliament, State Minister in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, and the Minister with Responsibility for the Poet Laureate Program. Ms. Joy Douglas, OD, Chairman, Board of Management, National Library of Jamaica, and co-chair of the Poet Laureate Committee. Ms. Beverley Lashley, our National Librarian. We have with us as well our Poet Laureate, Ms. Olive Senior. Listen, I'm going to tell you a serious joke between me and Ms. Senior, which she doesn't know of, a little bit later on, you know. Dr. Saadia Sanchez-Vegas, Director, UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean. And also with us is Everton Hannam from the Jamaica National Council of UNESCO, and he's also the General Secretary. We have Dave Collington-Davis with us, and Dr. Luiz Felipe Bellorin Neda is with us as well. But to get things started, I welcome Ms. Beverley Lashley, our National Librarian, to do the official welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, Ms. Dahlia Harris. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. The joy is mine to welcome you this afternoon to this momentous occasion as we celebrate World Poetry Day right here in Jamaica. It's held on March 21st of each year. The World Poetry Day was first celebrated in the year 2000 when the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, declared this day at its 30th session held in Paris, 1999. The purpose of World Poetry Day is to promote the reading, writing, speaking, publishing, and teaching of poetry everywhere in the world. In observance of this day, it is important, of course, that we welcome and recognize our distinguished guests as we receive special virtual remarks from the Honorable Olivia Grange, Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Dr. Saadia Sanchez-Vegas, who is the Director for the UNESCO Cluster for the Caribbean. So unfortunately, because it's World Poetry Day, she can't be here with us, but she'll will be with us in the virtual space. And to those, of course, who are graciously present in the physical form, namely the Honorable Alando Terrelonge, who is the State Minister in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, with special responsibility for the Poet Laureate program of Jamaica. We have Miss Olive Senior, our Poet Laureate of Jamaica for 2021 to 2024, and this is actually our first activity since being invested with the title last Wednesday at King's House. We have Miss Joy Douglas, OD, Chairman, Co-Chair of the Poet Laureate Program of Jamaica, as well as the Chairman of the National Library Board of Jamaica. In-house also is Mr. Everton Annon, and he is the Secretary General for the Jamaican National Commission for UNESCO. Dr. Luiz Felipe Bellorin, Neda, who is the husband of Louisa Gutierrez, and she is the Venezuelan ambassador right here in Jamaica. To the hardworking team at the National Library of Jamaica, special welcome, and we must also recognize Professor Edward Baugh, CD, who is the co-chair of the Poet Laureate Program of Jamaica, as well as Emina Tudakovic, who is the Canadian High Commission delegate, who is also joining us online. Finally, to all the friends of the National Library, the media, those participating online here in Jamaica and across the world, a warm welcome to you on behalf of the National Library of Jamaica, which of course you all know is an agency of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. I invite us all to readily receive today's program as we reflect on the unique ability of poetry to capture the creative spirit of the human mind. Once again, welcome to World Poetry Day Jamaica 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lashley. Just a correction, Luisa Gutierrez is the past representative of the Venezuelan government, but once you're here, we embrace you always, and thus the present tense. So as Ms. Lashley told you, some of our guests this afternoon will be joining us digitally, and the first person to do so will be the director of the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, Dr. Saadia Sanchez-Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen.
I will read the message from Audrey Azoulay, Director General of UNESCO, on the occasion of World Poetry Day, 21st March 2021. Just as the novelist Frank Casca wrote, a book must be the axe for the frozen sea inside us. So Stanford professor John Feldsteiner asks, in the title of his book, Can Poetry Save the Earth? Quote, we'll call on the pleasures of poetry when the time has come for an all-out response. Response starts with individuals. It is individual persons that poems are spoken by and spoken to. One by one, the will to act may rise within us, because we are what the beauty and force of poems reach towards. We have a chance to recognize and lighten our footprint in a world where all of nature matters vitally. Arranging words, color with images, struck with the right meter, the power of poetry has no match. This is the power to bring us together, to unite us around the same emotions, to allow us to escape even in lockdown. The value of poetry has never been more evident than during the past year. Poetry has the power to remind us of the beauty that surrounds us and of the resilience of the human spirit. This year, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Man and the Biosphere program, UNESCO is honoring past and present poets who stand for biodiversity and the conservation of nature. If the conservation of biodiversity is a new societal theme, the call to the appreciation of the beauty of nature has been a constant for poets for thousands of years. Love, death, and nature are perhaps the most common themes in poetry. Poets have long recognized and honored the profound association between human emotions and the richness of the surrounding environment. From Garcilaso de la Vega to William Wordsworth, Alexander Pushkin, and Sarojini Naidu. More recently, poets have begun using their cultural memory and ecological concerns to stand as witnesses to climate change. Through their work, these eco-poets place natural and cultural heritage at the center of political debate as a question of survival. This link between indigenous knowledge and the protection of ecosystems is powerfully expressed by the contemporary Mapuche poet Elikura Chihuahua. I then learned the names of the flowers and the plants. The insects perform their function. Nothing is superfluous in this world. The universe is a duality. The good does not exist without the bad. The earth doesn't belong to the people. Mapuche means people of the earth. Poetry lies at the heart of who we are as women and men, living together today, drawing on the heritage of past generations, custodians of the world for our children and grandchildren. By celebrating poetry today, we celebrate our ability to join together to the fight for biodiversity as a common concern of humankind and an integral part of the international development process. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanchez-Vegas, for those important reminders of how important poetry is to us all and to humanity, and specifically a time like this when we all have to come together and support each other across the globe. And now we'll hear from the State Minister, the Honorable Alando Terrelonge, from the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson, for proceedings this afternoon. Allow me just to make special mention of the Honourable Minister, Olivia Grange, who is joining us online. Of course, members of the UNESCO team who are here, Madam Poet Laureate, Miss Olive Senior, Madam Joy Douglas, Chairman of the Board of Management of the National Library of Jamaica, of course, our National Librarian, Miss Beverley Lashley, nuestros amigos de Venezuela, quienes están aquí también con nosotros, bienvenidos todos, ¿ya? And of course, to you joining us in the virtual world, welcome every single one of you. When I think of Jamaica, a few things immediately come to mind, and it's almost unimaginable to unentangle my own sense of Jamaicanness from these things. To me, the Jamaican experience would be incomplete without the pride that overtakes me when I consider that some of the world's best athletes are from this, the land of my birth. Being Jamaican means instinctively grooving to the drop emanating from the concert and dance halls of the cities. These components and so much more make up the tapestry that is our Jamaican life and our Jamaican culture. As apt as I try to be in capturing the essence of what it means to inhabit this beautiful country, no one quite does it as our native poets. Poetry, ladies and gentlemen, by definition, is a literary work in which the expression of feeling and ideas intensify by the use of distinctive style and rhythm. It is a powerful tool that can be used to give a history lesson, make you fall in love, feel anger, hatred, and joy. Jamaican poetry embodies this and so much more. It is, for us, a gateway to raise awareness to social and economic hardships, as seen in the works of Miss Lou in Dirty Tough. Linton Kwesi Johnson once said, "Writing was a political act and poetry was a cultural weapon." It is for this reason we recognize and celebrate World Poetry Day, so that we may be inspired to preserve the culture and keep telling authentic stories, even in times when it seems as though we are losing grip on what it means to be part of a community, when we feel disconnected from the outside world, even in times such as these, the time of COVID-19. Now, however, is the time for us to be resilient. Now is the time for us to be intentional about the narratives that we weave. Now is the time for us to put pen to paper and write and rewrite our Jamaican and our Jamaicanness. Though we may not see the value of doing so right now, the generations to come will have these pieces as mementos of how we overcame the difficulties of our time, just as we look to the brilliant poets that precede us. And so we cannot forget, nor can we allow our youth to forget where we are coming from and how they too can play a part in being historians, in capturing a Jamaica in the throes of change. This is the very mission of the Poet Laureate program, to encourage young people with creative gifts to take up the mantle of keeping Jamaican culture and heritage alive. So today, we don't just recognize World Poetry Day. We make a commitment to empowering young poets who will write Jamaica as seen through their eyes, to tell their stories, and to encourage their peers to join in the business of stewarding our rich culture through the written word. As the National Library of Jamaica, the Poet Laureate Jamaica program, and all affiliates continuing this meaningful work, I can confidently say poetry will prosper. And before I close, I am reminded of earlier, well, today's Sunday, so last week, Madame Poet Laureate Olive Sr., myself, and the Governor General. Last week at the ceremony, when she was being invested, we remarked on our childhood, and there was one poem that we all remembered, and it's a poem called Wilfred the Weevil, a poem that we all learned in primary school. And it was quite befitting to see the Governor General, Madame Senior, and myself just rehashing, remembering our childhood in this poem about Wilfred the Weevil. And today, I will do a poem for us all. Not Wilfred the Weevil, but something that speaks more to the youth of our generation. Something that speaks more to what it is that we want to accomplish with this new program of the Poet Laureate, and that it beckons to the youth as well, for them to take pen to paper and to let their voices be heard. And so I will read Youth Rebels by none other than Linton Kwesi Johnson. Youth Rebels. A brand new breed of blacks have now emerged, leading on the rough scene, breaking away, taking the day, saying to capital never, moving forward ever. They can only be new in age, but not in rage, not needing the soft and shallow counseling of the suit-brained sage in chain. Wrecking thin-shelled words, moving always forward, young blood, youth rebels, new shapes, shaping new patterns, creating new links, linking, blood rising surely, carving a new path, moving forward to freedom. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now we see why you have responsibility for the program. Linton Kwesi capturing the subculture of youth in the UK. Poetry is so amazing. And I'm glad that you placed it within the context of our own Jamaica and our own Poet Laureate program, because now we are going to invite the co-chair of the Poet Laureate Committee. You said poetry brings anger, hatred, and joy. And so we bring Miss Joy Douglas, OD, Chairman of the Board of Management of the National Library of Jamaica. Please make her feel welcome.
Good afternoon. Miss Harris, Master of Ceremonies, and of course the indomitable Honorable Alando Terrelonge, State Minister in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Miss Olive Senior, our lauded Poet Laureate of Jamaica for 2021 to 2024, our UNESCO representatives, National Librarian Miss Beverley Lashley, and I must say a special word of welcome to my Venezuelan friends who are here with us on another World Poetry Day. You would know that they've always been with us, and I'm just saying on behalf of the people of Jamaica, I'm taking the liberty. This couple are on their way. They have done their term here in Jamaica and will be returning to Venezuela shortly. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank them for representing their country so well over these years, and to take with them the warmth, love, and respect and appreciation of the people of Jamaica, for whom they have done so much as a country, the people of Venezuela, over many, many decades. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Management of the National Library of Jamaica, I would like to thank you for celebrating World Poetry Day 2021 with us. Today is of great importance to the National Library of Jamaica, as for several years now, we have singled out Jamaican poetry in the national collection for special attention, and continue to develop programs dedicated to the promotion of Jamaican poetry. Of course, at this time, our signature program is the Poet Laureate of Jamaica program. Poetry is woven into the seams of our great nation. Poetry signals the deepest feelings of our struggles and triumphs, of our history, culture, and heritage. It therefore means a great deal to the National Library of Jamaica to celebrate World Poetry Day, as it provides a vehicle to reiterate the importance of this creative form on a national level. The National Library of Jamaica is mandated to not only be the keeper of Jamaica's heritage, but to teach, present, and foster that heritage in future generations, ensuring that they benefit from knowing the rich history we have and utilize that knowledge to build a stronger Jamaica. It is therefore my distinct pleasure to be able to say to you today that the National Library of Jamaica has continued to successfully achieve its mandate through the Poetry in Action Office, that of the Poet Laureate of Jamaica. There has been sustained application of mastery and leadership through Professor Mervyn Morris, Professor Mervyn Morris, how could I say Morrison? OM, Miss Lorna Goodison, CD, and now Miss Olive Senior, the Poet Laureate of Jamaica for the period 2021 to 2024. We are confident that through her innovative programs, she will encourage future leaders to use this expressive form to achieve personal and communal growth and development. The National Library of Jamaica, with the help of our parent ministry and our partners like UNESCO, will continue to be a standard bearer for culturally led social transformation. On this occasion, we reiterate our commitment to the cause of national development and nation building through poetry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Douglas. And now it's time to hear from our Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, the Honorable Olivia Grange, CD, MP.
Today, we celebrate National Day of Poetry, which coincides with World Poetry Day. It's a time to celebrate poetry and poets, whose importance to our lives have been magnified during these challenging times. It is often said that in times of crisis, the role of art becomes more central to our lives. And our poets, as members of the artistic community, have been playing an essential role of helping us to cope with the COVID pandemic and its effects on every area of our lives. Now more than ever, we have seen how much art matters, how much music matters, how much words matter, how much poetry matters. The poet, like all artists, sees the world from a unique perspective and expresses it often in surprising ways. Ways that cause the rest of us to rethink beliefs, to take action, to see beauty which we never did before, and to help us to face another day. Today, we celebrate our great Jamaican poets who continue to inspire, to excite, to beautify, to delight, challenge, and confound us. I pay particular tribute to our new Poet Laureate, Olive Senior, a master poet who will lead the charge over the next 3 years to develop Jamaican poetry. We want to see more Jamaicans expressing themselves through poetry. Many of us enjoyed poems in school, but haven't written in a long time. I use the words of Ruth Foreman to encourage you to write. It is not your pen you're looking for. It is your tongue and those who speak with it. For as Mota Baruka says, this poem shall continue even when poets have stopped writing. This poem shall survive you, me. It shall linger in history, in your mind, in time, forever.
Minister. And now we will be thrilled by Dr. Luiz, Felipe, Bellorin, Neda. It's a beautiful song. It's their farewell song to Jamaica after 7 years, and it's a Caravana song of peace.
Hello all, and we say our greetings to the Ministry, the Honorable Olivia Grange, the State Minister Alando Terrelonge, the authorities of the National Library, Mr. Lashley and Madame Joy Douglas, and of course the presence of the poet Olive Sr., and all the team that is working to make possible this World Poetry Day celebration in Jamaica. And Luis Felipe asked me to say something on his behalf, to read something for all of you, and to all our sisters and brothers in Jamaica, Venezuela, and all the Caribbean in this special day, that he also expressed gratitude for this invitation of the National Library. And he said that Caribbean is music and poetry, life and passion, defense of the life in all its form and peace. This first song is Caravana, Canción de Paz, Song of Peace. It is his own composition in favor of the peace that he composed. He composed for the UNESCO, that we send greeting to the Dr. Saadia Sanchez-Vegas and also to Everton Ratay. And it said, mis manos, tus manos, sus manos, recobren la paz de la tierra. In English is my hands, your hands, and our hands recover the peace of the earth. His second song today is Perla Margariteña from the Venezuelan folklore. This is dedicated to Jesus Rosa Marcano. He's a big Venezuelan poet that born 100 years ago, and to the great poet of Jamaica, Louis Bennett. We want to say thank you for everything in Jamaica after these 7 years that we have been in this fabulous island, and to wish always the best. We have Jamaica in our heart. And to say again, Caribbean is life, poetry, diversity, peace, love. Jamaica, Venezuela, our Cuba, all are life, poetry, diversity, and long life to the poetry, to the love, to the peace. Thank you.
Thank you, my God. I am doctor, pero in music. No cardiology. Si pudiera alcanzar una de tus estrellas, dejaría un pedazo de mí. Nada cuesta llevarte un arco iris, un trozo de cielo sobre un dragón de la suerte. Haría un camino de ladridos y ruedas, de cantos que eleven mis sueños hasta tus sueños, que los muertos se conviertan en brisa, que los cantos se conviertan en pájaro, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz de la tierra, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz de la tierra. Si pudiera alcanzar una de tus estrellas, haría un camino de ladridos y ruedas, de cantos que eleven mis sueños hasta tus sueños, que los muertos se conviertan en brisa, que los cantos se conviertan en pájaro, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz de la tierra, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz, que mis manos, tus manos, sus manos recobren la paz de la tierra. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Thank you. The African Museum, Folklore Museum of Venezuela, Perla Margariteña. La concha dice en el mar, yo mantengo una riqueza, una prenda de belleza con un brillo natural. Yo valgo más que el coral, que diamante y que el rubí, yo no me cambio por ti. Pues yo valgo donde quiera, en regiones extranjeras, allí me aprecian a mí. Dicen que hubo, no hubo nada, me voy pa'l yopo de madrugada me voy pa'l yopo porque el guayabo me tiene loco. Usted la mando a poner, que si la pone la paga y si no la pone también. Si la pone la paga y si no la pone también, vaya. La pata cabra se queja y también el caracol. Pa' nosotros no hay dolor. Eso lo dice la almeja. También la pata la reina cuenta su historia sagrada. ¡Qué vida más desgraciada! Echarnos Dios en el mundo, en estos mares profundos donde no valemos nada. Desde que hubo, no hubo nada, me voy pa'l yopo de madrugada me voy pa'l yopo porque el guayabo me tiene loco. Usted la mandó a poner, que si la pone la paga y si no la pone también. Si la pone la paga y si no la pone también, vaya. Mis 3 hermanos queridos se lo llevo la corriente, dice un niño tristemente. Qué caso tan dolorido. Marcharon todos unidos a bañarse sin temor. Llegó el río con su furor. Se lo llevó muy ligero cuando desaparecieron. ¿Cuánto sería mi dolor? Que hubo, no hubo nada, me voy pa'l yopo de madrugada me voy pa'l yopo porque el guayabo me tiene loco. Usted la mandó a poner, que si la pone la paga y si no la pone también. Que si la pone la paga y si no la pone también. Que si la pone la paga y si no la pone también. Allá. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations, senior.
Thank you very much. A wonderful Venezuelan folk song, I'm told. Thank you for sharing it with us. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hear from our Poet Laureate of Jamaica for the period 2021 to 2024, a prize-winning author and internationally recognized literary luminary. Olive Senior is a poet, writer, researcher, teacher, and mentor. She's the author of 18 books, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and children's literature. Her work is the subject of numerous critical essays and has been translated into many languages, including Arabic, French, Spanish, and Korean. She consistently draws inspiration from her preoccupations with nature, religion, politics, and history, using a variety of literary techniques and forms to convey her worlds of poetic imagination. She draws spontaneously on the language and idiom of the folk culture and shows how easily these tap into and embody universal ideas and feelings. The global reach of her adventure with poetry took a new turn recently when she began to put out on social media poems which she calls pandemic poems, the idea triggered by the world's latest pandemic. She has recently published a collection titled Pandemic Poems, First Wave, to be followed, no doubt, by a second wave. She's made major contributions to Jamaica's cultural institutions in the field of publishing, having been editor of Social and Economic Studies, UWI, and Jamaica Journal, Institute of Jamaica. Internationally, she has been writer-in-residence in France, Australia, Trinidad, Canada, Scotland, and England. Her work has been used to pioneer Caribbean literature in the classrooms, both locally and abroad. She demonstrates her love for teaching and mentoring through her many appointments in tertiary institutions regionally and internationally. These include the University of Toronto, St. Lawrence University, University of Miami, Columbia University, and the University of the West Indies. She's also an active faculty member of the Humber School for Writers, Humber College. Her body of work has brought her numerous local and international awards and honors, and we are extremely honored to say that she's our Poet Laureate. Today, talking about why poetry. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Olive Sr.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much to our great chairperson, Queen Dahlia. And it is such a pleasure to be part of this event. I really want to thank the National Library, the National Librarian, Miss Lashley, Miss Joy Douglas, the chair, Mr. Green, who is my minder, for just facilitating my entry into this new stage of my life, which is frightening in a way, but also quite thrilling and exciting. So I really look forward to working with the National Library of Jamaica, which is the home of the Poet Laureate. And thank you to our Venezuelan friends, to those contributing to the musical program today. And above all, thank you to the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, the Honorable Olivia Grange, for her remarks, and of course, our State Minister in the Ministry, Honorable Alando Terrelonge, for his brilliant remarks. And I feel I'm in the best place when both of our ministers can recite poetry and even remember some of it. So thank you all very much. It's such a pleasure for me to be here celebrating World Poetry Day, established by UNESCO and organized here by the National Library of Jamaica. I was asked to talk on the topic, why poetry? And it's a question that you might well ask, especially at this time. Yet, one of the things that the pandemic is demonstrating is how people around the world are turning to poetry for consolation and emotional sustenance. For part of the magic of poetry has always been to bring communities together at times of celebration or bereavement. Not all poetry is the same, of course. There is poetry that is meant to harass our brain cells, leave us reeling from shock, or bring us to laughter or tears. Poetry to be studied and analyzed and dissected. But the art of poetry is such that a poem of any origin can take root in one individual soul or touch a whole world. Unfortunately, many in Jamaica seem to have lost that love of poetry that we once had. Perhaps because we have come to regard poetry as something written down in books, to be studied for exams and then forgotten. Many do not see poetry as relevant to their lives, especially when lives are so overburdened with everyday challenges. As Poet Laureate, I would like to see us turning back to a world where poetry played a role in everyone's life. Many of us can still remember our fathers and mothers, lettered or unlettered, able to recite well-known verses of poems. At a time when oral cultural transmission and memory work were strong, having bits of poetry in one's personal baggage was a matter of pride, as one could pull words from memory and throw them at others as needed, to console, to heal, to teach, to warn, to entertain or amuse, to impart everyday wisdom and rules of life, and even to offer back chat or throw a word. For the young ones, poetry was part of entertainment and play. I don't feel that my job today is to appeal to those among us who were brought up on poetry, who love poetry, who already know that poetry matters. My address, rather, is to those of you who do not think poetry has any bearing on your lives. I would like to convince you by pointing to the many ways your lives are already touched by poetry, from birth to death, perhaps not recognized as such, because we're calling poetry by many other different names. Acknowledging that the poetry that we already consume in our everyday lives will encourage us to want more of it, the way our grandparents did by memorizing it. It is now well established that our popular music did not originate from thin air, but lyrically had its origins in the oral recitations, proverbs, church hymns, and teachings embodied in Granny's sayings. So I want to take you, who is not a lover of poetry, through some of the ways poetry is already embedded in your life. In the process, you might even remember and want to say with me some of the words of some of what you don't even remember that you remember. We need to reiterate, of course, that poetry is part of our written culture, yes, the thing we learn in school. That is the poetry of ideas and of craft, of a tradition of named poets and performers, and international recognition of both written and spoken poetics, books, and recordings. But poetry also belongs to the people. It is the one craft that offers possibilities to everyone to take words into the mouth and toss them around to see them take shape. But first, we need to begin at the beginning, fostering a love of words in children, encouraging them to acquire language along with rhythm and rhyme. And that is where our introduction to poetry begins, as children, in the world of lullabies and nursery rhymes. Who does not remember golden slumber, kiss your eyes, smiles await you when you rise? Or sing a song of sixpence, your pocket full of rye. Or Mary, Mary, quite contrary, how does your garden grow? Which of you can dredge from memory those teaching tools that were once known as memory gems, stuck on the walls of every schoolroom and repeated as needed, to keep young folk on the straight and narrow and imprinted on our conscience throughout life? Speak the truth and speak it ever, cost it what it will. He who hides the wrong he does the wrong thing still. Much of these pearls of wisdom are part of world culture, but we in Jamaica have generated our own ways of transmitting wisdom in rhyme and verse, best exemplified by Louise Bennett and those young poets of the spoken word who are following in her footsteps. So in these hard times, many will find their situation perfectly captured in, for instance, that old poem of Miss Lou's, Dot It Off. And I particularly like the verse because it's so appropriate to our time, which says, "Things so bad that nowadays when you ask somebody how them do, them afraid you take it, tell them back, so them to answer you. You hear my minister? All right. And even when dirty tough, we have the poetry of our folk songs to remind us of better, such as Mango Time, when, at the height of the mango crop, when the fruit them are ripe and drop, wash your pot, turn them down, mango time. We tend to forget, too, that poetry is embedded in what we call mnemonic devices or personal reminders. 30 days hath September, April, June, and November. That is part of universal lore, but we have our own Caribbean mnemonic, too, in our hurricane reminder. June too soon, July stand by, August you must, September remember, October all over. Although nowadays we know October is not all over, we'll have to rewrite this. I shouldn't have to remind you that song lyrics are also poetry, and Jamaica has given some of the most memorable lyrics to the world, from the constellation of the rivers of Babylon to so much of the offerings of Bob Marley or Peter Tosh or Toots or Burning Spear or Bob Andy or Butcher, to name just a few, or of the creative vibes of this whole new generation taking fresh lyrics to the world. Try tuning out the sound sometimes and listen to the poetry, to the sheer lyrical genius of, say, the Heptones' Book of Rules. Isn't it strange how princesses and kings in clown ragged capers in sawdust rings, while common people like you and me are builders for eternity? Each is given a bag of tools, a shapeless mass, and a book of rules. To me, that is one of the most beautiful poems written in Jamaica. Anyway, I hope that by now I have convinced you on the fence that you are already consuming a great deal of poetry without realizing it. And I've yet to refer to probably the most popular means of poetry transmission in Jamaica, known as a land of churches, that is, religious or sacred hymns. Yes, all hymns are sung, but they too begin life as word, as poetry, ranging from Jamaican revival hymns such as Noah built the ark and gone, another generation come, or the amazing poetic metaphor of likening the betrayed Judas to a parakeet in the garden, or to the Rastafarian, there is a land far, far away, to the beloved church hymns from Europe or America, old and still universally popular, such as when peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Yes, I hope on World Poetry Day I have managed to convince you, unbelievers in poetry, that there is so much that one can say in answer to the question, why poetry? Perhaps even answer the question, what is poetry? To those of you who already write, read, and teach poetry, who speak poetry, who love poetry, I'm depending on you, as Poet Laureate, to help spread word. I have already announced my intention to use my mandate to help to foster environmental awareness through poetry with the slogan, I see my land. We need to open the eyes of our children especially to the beauty and power of words so that they can practice holding them in their mouths, continue to dance to the timeless rhythm of their mother's heartbeats, feel the power of nursery rhymes and ring games in the schoolyard as ways of acquiring sound, word, and power. Let us take our natural gifts for rhyme and rhythm and song and word play to talk about matters that concern us all. Poetry can help us to take responsibility for our world by giving us new ways of seeing. I see my land is a way to bring poetry down to everyone's line of sight, in backyards, lanes, seaside, or mountaintop. Let us, by next World Poetry Day, be able to offer us up some poems that can assert with pride, I see my land. Thank you.
Wow. So much to unpack from that presentation. Our approach to education, I often ask, why do we have so much fun in early childhood, and by the time we get to secondary school, they stop doing nursery rhymes and memory gems and making it a little bit more difficult? Why don't we incorporate more of that? Wow, thank you so much, Miss Senior, for that. And I said, you know, she is a treasure and so is her work. When I entered the Festival Queen competition decades ago, I got A to Z of Jamaican heritage. Wonderful book. I mean, the judge is going to ask me a question that I didn't have the answer to. And so the following year, I said to the incoming queen, I'm going to lend it to you, but make sure you give it back to me. But that never happened. And so I got another one. And that queen came and I said, listen, the last one didn't return it. Don't make her have to come to your house for this book. And I gave it to her, never got it back. Then Miss Senior came on Smile Jamaica and had a copy. And she gave it to me and I said, hallelujah, God works in mysterious ways. This is what I was waiting for. Somebody bought it. I said, no, I'm not lending you this book. This book, once it leaves, it never comes back. They said, no, man, 2 days. It never came back. And I said, no, look like I'm destined not to have this book. And then out of the blue, I went to the Jamaica Library Service. I was hosting their anniversary. And then at the end of it, they presented me with a basket of books. And when I opened, there was the book. And I saw that one is grilled up now at home. So no one can borrow it. But it speaks to just the impact of your work, Madam Poet Laureate. And we truly, truly are honored and grateful that you have agreed to be a part of this program. And we look forward to all the work that you will continue to do here in Jamaica. And now we're going to move to a musical performance, and this one's going to be done by Dave Collington-Davis. He's a saxophonist and flautist for 10 years. So expect some great music. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dave Collington-Davis. Thank you very much, Dave. Feels good, huh? Yes. And it wouldn't be World Poetry Day Jamaica if we didn't have some poetry being read. We've heard some earlier from both ministers, and now we're going to be treated to some poetry from members of the Diplomatic Corps and the National Library of Jamaica Poet Laureate Committee. And it will come in this order from Emena Tuadakovic. She's the Canadian High Commissioner Designate. From our chairman, Joy Douglas. And from Poet Laureate Committee member, Dr. Michael Buckner, who's also a orator for the University of the West Indies. Please enjoy.
By the pass of the Coquihalla, where the roadbed snakes and clings, to the soaring, perilous rock face where an eagle needs his wings. Down through the wooded canyons of the Otter and Tulameen, where first October wanders, pale gold through the somber green. You will come to the Okanagan and meet a breath of the south, where the wind that brings fair weather comes up from the valley's mouth. You may ride to the Greats of Morning on slopes of yellow pine and flats of sage and greasewood in a country I call mine. You may camp in the open timber on the level floored plateaus when sunset dyes the tree trunks, cinnamon, purple, and rose. While blued in the smoke of evening, the pink-gray ranges rise, with the piney smell in your nostrils and your heart in paradise.
The world is charged with the grandeur of God. It will flame out like shining from shook foil. It gathers to a greatness like the ooze of oil crushed. Why do men then now not wreck his rod? Generations have trod, have trod, have trod, and all is seared with trade, bleared, smeared with toil, and wears man's smudge, and shares man's smell. The soil is bare now, nor can foot feel being shod. And for all this, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things, and though the last lights of the black west went, O morning, at the brown brink eastward springs, because the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods with warm breast and with our bright wings.
Carry down artists, lock down this town, and scorch the earth till not even lizard don't crawl. Those who still living next morning will see me surviving still. Wood of life, salvation tree. I renew my phases of lilac blue and gold and always green. I am a shady place for those who have lost their way to the house of the man who gave them stones for bread. I don't want to sound like I boasted, but too many small men in this 2-before place is giant. And you only have to open your mouth and you can hang up a shingle outside your gate with expert behind your name. And to think, so many people born and grow and dead and never feel the rain breeze blowing cool across Sincona from Catherine's Peak at middle day. Sometimes I feel my heart harden, but I'm not going nowhere. My roots sink too deep. And when the 8 o'clock sun wake up the generations of stale pee and puke that stain the sidewalk by parade, I weep. I bloom choirs of small butterflies.
Beautiful. How beautiful. I was just sitting there and saying to myself, you know, everything happens for a reason, because COVID-19 has forced us to digitize so many things and record so many things and document so many things that maybe ordinarily we wouldn't do. Because to capture those 3 poems, beautiful, beautiful. Hey, well done. Yes. And so you heard the poet laureate. She wants everyone to see their land. And one of the things she wanted to find out was just how do Jamaicans view poetry? Do they remember poems? What do they think about poems? And so we took to the streets, and this is what happened.
Poetry is a form of expression. It can allow us to creatively express ourselves through our thoughts, emotions, and our words. Now, I'm Brittany Clark, and I'm here in the streets of St. Andrew, and I'm going to walk around and hear from the people as to whether or not they can actually remember any of their poems from their childhood or school days, and if they can actually recite it. Now, join me.
Slowly, silently, now the moon walks night in her silver shoe. This way and that, she sway beneath her silver. That's the part.
Why, true, me left school so I go look a while now. I don't remember them to that, you know. I made up on a local road and hustling and look. Straight Spanish Town, yeah, moment, straight Spanish Town.
Well, to be honest with you, there's one that I can remember, and I think the writer for that poem is R.L. Stevenson. The moon has a face like the clock in the hall. It shines on thieves on the garden wall. That's all I can remember. There's two lines.
Poetry is an art form, and it's like the writer's expression, so it gives the writer expression and voices their thoughts and ideas. All right, the poem that I remember, this Miss Lou say, good morning, teacher, how is you? I don't remember the rest, and then she talk about the ag and all kind of something in the poem.
The heights of great men reach and care for, not attained by sudden flight, but they while their companions slept were toiling upward through the night.
It's a way out of basically everyday living and all of that. So I just take a step back from everything that's going on in the world, and I just do me. Our neighbors been shot down like dove. I feel wonder where the peace, the joy, the love, mama. Cry she weep her. Belly she rub her firstborn life fiercer than a pool of blood. Me sick a night, tired of funeral. Street turning a bloodbath, full up a criminal. Killing for no reason, killing for every season. Stop kill the baby or try drink the feed.
Roast Turkey by Louis Bennett. Yeah, girl, run go wash the jester pot, catch up the fire friend. Tell Miss Louis to send some feeding. Miss Marie turkey dead. The turkey wake up hearty and was,
I think it's important because it helps students or even young adults to analyze things and find a deeper meaning behind just what's on paper.
Yeah, poetry is actually very important. You know, when we talk about expressing ourselves, there are more artistic ways of doing it, you know. Sometimes we want to tell a story, sometimes probably a song, but you know, poetry is a very fine art that we don't really appreciate a lot.
Yes, I think it's very important. It allows you to express yourself, so that's why.
Maybe a poem can change your mood, you know. Probably you're feeling down, you read something, it makes you feel better.
Well, I think poetry is important because it gives you a sense of purpose. And as you know, poetry also acts as a form of relaxing.
Poetry is important because it's a form of art. It's something that we use throughout human history to help us see what was happening in the times. You know, it's like a, what do they call it now, like a social voice, a voice of the people. You get to understand how people were feeling at that time. And it's in a shorter format than books.
I definitely think it is important. It's a means of passing down tradition to the younger generation, you know.
You see the thing I remember right now? I think it's the heights of great man reach and kept. Is that a poem? We're not attained by a sudden flight, but but while your companions step their upper tiling through the night.
Well, there you have it. Those are the views from the persons in the streets as it relates to poetry. Some of them remembered, some not so much, and some dropped some hot originals for us. So, I think for the most part, Jamaican people still have a good grasp of why poetry is still an important part of our culture. So, what do you think? Do you remember any of your childhood poems?
Listen, don't play with Jamaican people, you know. We underestimate them sometimes. You see, they know what poetry means and its importance. And remember, their poems, isn't that lovely? Yeah, man, we need to do, them just need a little encouragement. I think if the loader man, as them call him, realize that all he does is poetry all day. You ever hear them when them loading the bus? All he does is poetry. Somebody just need to tell him that that's poetry. And he'll understand that he's one of the most influential poets in Halfway Tree and downtown Kingston. All right, and I'm listening. My grandmother used to recite this very long poem. Was it King Bruce of Scotland? I'm trying to remember. Very long poem. And we had to sit and listen to it, you know. That poem could go on for an hour, I'm telling you. But it was such, you know, it was from memory. They taught them in school. Amazing. And now we're going to hear from one of our young poets. She's an award-winning actress and poet, Dania Brown. Is going to walk us through the art of dub.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to thank the National Library of Jamaica for having me today on World Poetry Day Jamaica. I'll be performing 2 dub pieces. The first one is Jamrock, and it's by a collective of Arden High School students. Yes. Jamaica, 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 Jam Dong, Jamaica, Jam Rock, Jamaica, Jam Dong, Jamaica, Jam Rock, hey, Jamaica, a Jam Dong, Jamaica, a Jam Rock, Jamaica, Jam Dong, Jamaica, Jam Rock. Welcome to Jam Rock, 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 rock. Jamaica, land we love with the blue skies them. Under the sun we have ackee and saltfish and rundown. So all the tourists them bring your belly come. The land of wood and water, that we are pre. We're friendly, we're caring, and we're built on unity. So no matter when nobody want say we are the best, we are the BADDEST. Uncle Sam got nothing pa we, Mama Africa, we come from brave and strong. Run we from yes, cause I yes we belong here. Cause I yes we belong here. Run we from yes, cause I yes we belong. In case you never know, we around the world of sports we have the fastest runner. Ooh, Usain Bolt. Zoops you never see it. Shelly bun up the track. Bridget jump the hurdles. Asafana look back. Reggae music gone large. It a play upon every corner from Taros Riley to the strong one. Etana them feel say true we love reggae music. We no godly. No godly, but a true we love we Father God, make him always a blessed way, a blessed way. Wait there, girl over hilltop there, mine know you sit down there, girl over hilltop there, mine know you sit down there, cause answer about you upon your escalale, mine know you sit down there, answer about you upon your escalale, mine know you sit down there. We folk songs and we dance, help build we culture, preserve we heritage, we guide to the future. Them preserve we heritage, we guide to the future. Preserve we heritage, we guide to the future. We are the BADDEST. Uncle Sam na got nothing pa we, Mama Africa, we come from. Can't run we from yes, cause I yes we belong here. Cause I yes we belong. Can't run we from yes, cause I yes we belong. Jamaica a jam dong. Jamaica a jam rock. Jamaica jam dong. Jamaica jam rock. Jamaica a jam dong. Jamaica a jam rock. Jamaica jam dong. Jamaica jam rock. Welcome to Jam Rock, 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 rock. Thank you. And the second piece will be Patois Talking by Oku Unuru. Patois speaking is the in thing. Did anyone know this? I really saw some people talking, when it should be Patois talking. Yeah. Patois talking is the in thing. Patois talking, yeah. Patois talking, na ita carry the swing, come. Patois talking, yeah. Patois talking is the in thing. Patois talking, na ita carry the swing. No one Miss Lumbe forget the Governor General just for pop some lingua pan wa island so the whole wide world would the most understand the Gotangala with situation for no se patois is the language of our forefathers that was taken away from the land of Africa. So no big up the boy named Bakramasa, cause if you this your culture, you curry fever in in a the patwa talking, yeah, patwa talking is the in thing, patwa talking, patwa talking, it a carry swing, come now, patwa talking, patwa talking is the in thing, patwa talking, it a carry swing. Now some people hoity-toity and speaky-spokey and a play a cockatty and want to take liberty and want to downgrade with vocabulary. But if a man shot them a box and land them to kick you with a CO, them land for chat patwa quick. Patwa talking, yeah. Patwa talking is the in thing. Patwa talking. Patwa talking, it a carry swing. Come now, patwa talking. Patwa talking is the in thing. Patwa talking. Patwa talking, it a carry swing. Now, no want for see my grandpa when him romantic, when him put on him suit and him look so slick and him go down the road for go check to chick and him chat the rab and patwa lyrics. Him say, my honey pie, my bread and butter, me love you like a breche and banana, me badu, tomatoes and potato, me okra, pumpkin and kisada, yeah, marmalade and guava jam, me run down, and me pum pum yam. Blue dress set her hot pampers. Cause me sugar daddy is your farmer man. And if you're there with me, you know I'll be a banga rang in a day. Patwa talking. Patwa talking is the in thing. Patwa talking, yeah. Patwa talking, it a carry swing. Come now. Patwa talking. Patwa talking is the in thing. Patwa talking, yeah. Patwa talking, it a carry swing.
Dania Brown, one of our more talented young thespians. And on occasion when she's a stage manager, she's my boss. Don't make that smile fool you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the vote of thanks, please welcome Royane Green, Director of Special Programs at the National Library of Jamaica.
Miss Lou would have say, howdy and thank you, no broke no square. And with that piece of advice, it is my honor to wish you a good afternoon, having observed all established protocols. I'm elated to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the National Library of Jamaica, which has now culminated a momentous week of celebration concerning poetry. First, with the ceremony of investiture for Miss Olive Senior, Poet Laureate 2021 to 2024, and now with World Poetry Day Jamaica. We extend sincere thanks to the Honorable Minister, Olivia Grange, and the Minister of State with special responsibility for the Poet Laureate of Jamaica program, Alando Terrelonge, for their continued support to the endeavors of the National Library of Jamaica. We honor our newly invested Poet Laureate, Miss Olive Senior, for her inspiring contribution to today's proceedings. Sincere thanks as well to the members of the Diplomatic Corps who willingly participated in today's ceremony, albeit virtually, Canadian High Commissioner-designate Emina Tudakovic, and the Director of the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, Dr. Saadia Sanchez-Vegas, who we know are viewing the proceedings online. We extend our appreciation also to Dr. Luiz Felipe Neda, who gifted us with a wonderful musical rendition in tribute to the enduring diplomatic relations between Jamaica and Venezuela. To our Master of Ceremonies, Miss Dahlia Harris, the renowned media practitioner, and our very own Auntie Dahlia, we thank you immensely for a job well done. To our performers, we say bravo, excellent, exceptional performances. And to the leadership and staff of the National Library of Jamaica, we could not have done this without you. Last, but certainly not least, to our viewing audience online, we say thank you. World Poetry Day, Jamaica. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Royane, and thanks to everyone again for participating and for joining us online. Let's make every day World Poetry Day here in Jamaica. Remember, see your land. I look forward to all that's going to happen, Miss Senior. I really am excited about the work that you will continue to do. God bless, and as we say in Jamaica, walk good. We have some refreshments for you, and they're packaged to go.